Okay. Let's go live on Rockfin. Do the thing, Rockfin. Do the thing.
Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Happy Thursday, guys. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Quick shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And let's go ahead and do the damn thing, guys. Let's go ahead and do it. It's Thursday. I'm here. A lot happened yesterday when I was not here. Let's go ahead and get into that. Really quick, I want to give shout outs to people in the chat. So let's see who's here. Shout out to, my God, this name, Negro 489, Low Energy Dawn. What's going on? Dan says, dump a Trump. Shout out to Soul. Biden can't win anything. It will be the same circus again if Trump runs. Well, go ahead and take that poll, guys. If you haven't had a chance to do so, it's pinned at the top of the chat. Who do you think would win if Joe Biden ran again against Donald Trump, this time in 2024? Now, remember, this is if Joe Biden runs, not if he has a replacement that runs for him. Shout out to Monarch. Biden beat Trump in 2020, but it was not overwhelming nor impressive. With 2 years already in, Biden has lost so much support from the working class. Hence, I don't see Biden beating Trump twice. Ouch. What's going on, Roman? The only way they could do worse than Joe is if they tried to throw Hillary in there. What's going on? Hannah G says Biden would lose. Angela, who's a Sabby member, says, doobie-doobie-doo, time for Sabby part 2. Looks like a good topic lineup tonight. Yes, we have so much to talk about. What is going on? Hi, Biden has support with his diaper. The jokes are coming in. Greetings, Heine Ken Thompson. U.S. needs to break down before anything will change. Trump promised he would stop the swindle in the administration, but he didn't do it. He said he would look into 9/11, the false flag operation, ? What's going on? Lawrence, who's a Sabby member, says doobie doobie door 2024. Shout out to T-Waz. Heck, Rick DeSantis would probably beat Biden. Think you mean Ron DeSantis? What's going on? Rick says, hey, y'all. Shout out to Israel, says, happy Thirsty Thursday, fam. Greetings, Corey says, Israel Moore, LOL, hey, all. Shout out to Saul, sends love. Greetings, Randy says, hello, everyone. Shout out to Bryce, says, sup, everyone, and Sabby. Greetings, Nico P says, hello, chat. Don't know why I said it that way. Just kind of came across that way when I read it. Hello, chat. What's going on? Jay says, hello, Rick Solis and all citizens of the universe. Greetings, Kitty Love says, hi, everyone. What's going on? Gamer says, hello again. Shout out to McFluffin Lovin, who's a Sabby member, currently at work, but wanted to quick sneak in to say, hey, welcome. Shout out to Jesus says, erectile dysfunctional Donnie. Oh boy, it's already getting started. Shout out to Nancy says, hello, Sabby. Greetings, Chris says, depends on how well they control the machines. What's going on? Ashira says, Mama Bear is gone. Yes, I saw that. I know. I'll have to talk about that tomorrow. I have to get into that. Greetings, Terry says, hello, fam. Shout out. Want to see more. Happy holidays, Sabby. Hello, and thank you. Greetings, Eric, who's a Sabby member, says, hi, Thursday. Hi, all. What's going on? Ricky says, the fossil is gone. Oh, you guys. Greetings, Science Lab says, hi, Sabby from the UK. What's up, UK? Greetings, Nikichia says, hey, Sabby love. Hello. Shout out to Bramila Jayapal is a Baba Yaga. These names are cracking me up. Says, hello. Shout out to, I'll make sure I'm not skipping over. My comrade JB's in the house says, hey, everyone, I'm going to pop some tags. LOL. We were talking about rap earlier on RBN. I'm going to pop some tags. Only got $20 in my pocket. What's up, CBC voter says, happy Thursday, Sabby Sabs. Greetings, Marxist Leninist says, hi, workers of all countries unite. I agree. I agree. Okay. And a quick shout out here to Steve, who says, smash that like button. Go ahead and give it a hawk smash. Thank you guys so much. Let's get into it, guys. I want to give a quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. You guys helped me go a long way here. Thank you so much, Sabby patrons. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and of course, the ultimate. All of their names are listed here. You guys are doing the damn thing. Really appreciate you. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And let's go ahead and give it up for new Sabby patrons. We call them newbies. Let's give it up for David August and Larry Larson. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate your support. Okay, what are we talking about tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go ahead and share my screen. I want to go ahead and share that thumbnail. We'll get right into it. All right, tonight we are discussing Donald Trump announcement. Donald Trump is back, and you can see the little laugh emoji there. This is very hilarious to me. I'm going to get into that later on. I'm also going to discuss Glenn Greenwald calls out funds. What is Glenn Greenwald talking about, and who is he calling out? That would be an interesting story there. I'm also going to discuss Dolly Parton gets paid. What was Dolly Parton paid for, and what does this have to do with Amazon? Big story there. We're going to get into that. And last but not least, Georgia cop rage. If you have not seen that video, you will see it tonight, and we'll get into the article as well. A very disturbing story. So I do have to forewarn you about that before we start. And we are going to go ahead and get started with that story. Now, this news came out of Georgia. Apparently, there was a young man who was detained in the Georgia jail, in one of the Georgia jails there in Camden County, and something happened to him. Now, I am going to forewarn you, this is not going to be something that is easy for you to watch. So if you get a little queasy, you may want to turn away from this one. And then we're going to get into the article that goes a little bit further into this story. Now, this is trending, by the way. 5 officials in Camden County, Georgia, assaulted 41-year-old Jared Hobbs, who was on suicide watch. So that is another thing that you need to know about the detainee, that he is on suicide watch. So I'm going to forewarn you, this is not going to be easy to watch.
Okay. They came into the cell. He's on suicide watch. They jump him. They beat him up. He's providing no resistance. This is a gang-related attack, obviously. Look at the brutality here. Other inmates literally come to save this man. No other news agency has this story yet. We're the first to bring this to you, and I have significant background as to what happened to this man. Very sad. It continues, and what happened afterwards is that literally they did nothing to help him. Mr. Hobbs was there for a non-violent offense.
Before we get into the charges, which, by the way, I think that's irrelevant. Regardless of the charge, I think we need to be very clear here. Regardless if it was a non-violent offense or not, he still didn't deserve to be beaten like that. So I want to say that because I see they're trying to, insert that in here and say, oh, he was there for a non-violent. It doesn't matter. He should have never been beaten up like that. Something I want to show you before we get into the charges. There's something I want to point out here in this video. At one point, it looks like one of the police officers here, it looks like he was trying to break it up. And I want to make sure I'm seeing this correctly. Watch the African-American police officer that comes in and tell me if you see the same thing.
Related attack, obviously.
This guy right here. This is what I couldn't figure out. Is he trying to break them up? Is he trying to pull them away? Or is he trying to get in and hit him too? So let's see.
Look at the brutality here. Other inmates.
So it looks like he was pushed out of the way. So I'm not sure what his take was. Saul says it did look like he wanted to break it up. That's what I thought, like when I first saw this. So let's go on.
Literally come to save this man. No other news agency has this story yet. We're the first to bring this to you, and I have significant background as to what happened to this man. Very sad. It continues, and what happened afterwards is that literally they did nothing to help him. Mr. Hobbs.
I don't know what happened there.
There.
Let me try that again.
Hobbs was there for a non-violent offense. And obviously committed no violence. 3 white male staff members beat and strangled Mr. Hobbs.
Hold on.
Before
Tight. There's a delay here. Hold on. Tight VNC is freezing. I'm just going to refresh it. Sometimes that happens. Okay. We're going to try this again. Sorry about that.
They came into the cell. This man. Very sad. It continues. And what happened afterwards is that literally they did nothing to help him. Mr. Hobbs was there for a non-violent offense and obviously committed no violence to provoke those cops. At least 3 white male staff members beat and strangled Mr. Hobbs before.
So he wasn't just beaten, he was also strangled.
For dragging his completely limp body out of the cell. They brutalized him. Hobbs was arrested for driving under a suspended license and possession of a controlled substance.
Let's pause right here for a second. There's something I want to point out here. So he was arrested for driving under a suspended license and possession of a controlled substance. So in reference to possession of a controlled substance, this is another reason why. See, this is why police officers should not do traffic stops. This is exactly why. And I stand firmly by that. Originally, the reason he was pulled was probably because he was driving under a suspended license. So maybe they had the plate or whatever. Or it could have been just because he was driving because he was black. And then they pulled him and then they realized, oh, let me go ahead and run your license. Oh, your license is suspended. You got anything in the car? Get out of the car. Let me search your car. This is how this goes, you guys. This is how it escalates from one thing to another thing. And this is why I don't think police officers should handle traffic stops. Who was this guy harming? Who was he harming? Driving under suspended license. Okay. Give him a fine for that. You can give someone a fine for that. But it is because he is pulled in the first place. Now, once they pull you, depending on what state you live in, now they can search your car. And this is where they get a lot of people. They may pull you because you were speeding, or they said you ran past a stop sign, or they could just pull you because you're black. And they feel like you're driving in the wrong neighborhood that you should not be driving in. So they pull you without a reason. By the way, they don't have to have a reason to pull you. Just keep that in mind. So they pull you, and then once they pull you, as soon as you hear those words, step out of the car. If you have anything in that car that you don't want them to see, 9 times out of 10, they're going to find it. That's usually the next step. Okay, I couldn't get them on this, so let me search the car and see if they have drugs. Sometimes they'll plant drugs. And police officers have been caught doing this too, particularly Baltimore police have been caught doing this. Look, they have quotas that they have to make. So sometimes they just pull people for no reason. Let's go on.
That's what he was in there for. The 41-year-old was held in isolation for 15 days after the unprovoked attack. After.
Why was he held in isolation? So this is another part of the problem. He was held in isolation after they beat the crap out of him. So then he was just put into like a hole. What? We'll go on.
He did not receive any medical attention at all. One of the officers in the video did have his hand placed in a cast after he punched a jail wall in a missed blow at Hobbs.
So he did not receive any medical attention at all. They repeatedly punched this man in the head. So I'm not surprised if he has a concussion. But if you've been repeatedly punched in your head over and over, and you don't seek any medical attention, that could be dangerous. They don't care. You see how they don't care about his life? They don't care if he's hurt, if he's endangered.
There's more. Hobbs says he was bruised and bleeding from the thrashing. One of his dreadlocks was ripped from his bloody scalp.
They ripped his hair out of his scalp. Now, I really want to know, what in the world did this guy do that warranted that type of an attack? What did he do? Because I'm telling you, this video has gone viral. Still haven't heard that he did anything. Still haven't heard it. Guy says, where is the NAACP? That's a good question. Where are they? Let's go on.
Here's the quote. Jared Hobbs says to Indisputable, I really thought I was going to lose my life that night. That I was the only thing I was telling myself was, don't fall to the ground. Because you know that's how George Floyd died. So that's why I would not fall to the ground, even though.
Okay, and there's more of that story on TYT as well. So if you look at the comments, people are saying like defund the police, like a gang funded by the government. It is absolutely horrific. Now, I do want to go to.
They came into the cell.
I do want to go to the article here, which gives a little bit more detail. Let me go ahead and make it a little bit larger. So Georgia sheriff investigates jailers shown punching detainee. So again, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And this is him right here. Security video from a Georgia jail shows a detainee being pushed against a wall by guards and repeatedly punched in the head and the neck after 5 deputies come into the man's cell. An attorney for the detainee, by the way, his name is Jared Hobbs. He's 41 years old. The attorney released the video on Monday. Civil rights attorney Harry Daniels said authorities should pursue criminal charges against the sheriff deputies in Camden County who swarmed Hobbs, who is Black, after he was booked for a traffic violation and drug possession charges on September 3rd. So, according to this article, they attacked him after he was booked. Let's go on. It's undeniable that Mr. Hobbs was approached by jailers and he was assaulted, punched multiple times in the back of his head, kneed in his head, and dragged out of his cell. This is a brutal beating, a brutal attack. Camden County Sheriff Jim Proctor's office said in a statement Monday that the sheriff had reviewed the video with members of his command staff and ordered an internal investigation to begin immediately. What is there to investigate? I think the video speaks for itself. Well, what are you investigating? What do you need to look into? Oh, and internal investigate. So they're investigating themselves. The sheriff's office did not release any details about the jailers involved, including their races. Daniels questioned why nothing happened sooner. The confrontation between Hobbs and the jailers happened more than 2 months ago. This is not recent. We're just seeing the video now. And Hobbs was charged with fighting the deputies that same day. Let's go on. A spokesperson for the sheriff, Captain Larry Bruce, declined to answer further questions, including whether the guards involved remained on duty. Jail records show Hobbs of Greensboro, North Carolina, was arrested September 3rd in coastal Camden County, about 100 miles south of Savannah. He was initially booked on charges of speeding. You see how it changes? So now this, according to this article, he was booked on charges of speeding, driving on a suspended or revoked license, and possessing an illegal drug. So let me issue a red flag here. Here's the red flag alert. He's from Greensboro, North Carolina. 9 times out of 10, he had out-of-state plates. Even though it's Georgia, which is not far from North Carolina. That's a target. A lot of people don't realize this, but out-of-state plates, a lot of times if police officers are driving around and they're trying to get quota, they're looking for someone to book. Out-of-state, oh, we see a Black guy driving around and he has out-of-state plates. Oh, and he's speeding. Boom, target. This is how they can come up to you and ask you these questions like, where are you coming from? I see you got North Carolina tags. What are you doing here? As if it's not a free country. Let's go on. The sheriff's office released no details of what happened to Hobbs in the cell. So the office didn't even tell people what happened. They were really going to try to keep this under wraps. This wasn't supposed to get out. But federal court records in North Carolina, where Hobbs was on probation for 2014 federal criminal conviction, say guards entered Hobbs' cell because he was repeatedly kicking his cell door and refusing orders to stop. The video shows Hobbs alone in a cell, standing by the door, then turning towards the bed and picking up 2 objects. His attorney said there were a piece of paper and a sandwich. A guard rushes into the cell and grabs Hobbs around the neck, trying to push him into a corner. So because he's kicking the cell door, he deserves a beat down by 4 guys. He deserves to be beat down and punched in his head. He deserves to have his hair ripped out of his scalp. He deserves to be thrown into the hole for 15 days. And then you guys don't even want to report this story and let people know that this happened. You tried to keep this hush. Four others came in behind him. As jailers tried to hold Hobbs by his wrists, one of them starts punching Hobbs in the back of the head and the neck. Why were they punching him in his head? The video shows at least two other guards throwing punches. A second video from a camera outside the cell shows jailers dragged Hobbs through the open door and hurl him against a wall. A deputy repeatedly raises his right knee and foot a few times, though it's unclear if he is striking Hobbs. The struggle continues until Hobbs, who is out of the camera frame, appears to be pinned to the ground. The entire confrontation lasts about a minute. Jail records show Hobbs was charged afterwards with aggravated battery, simple assault, and obstruction of law enforcement officer. Aggravated battery for what? Because basically what we saw in the video, the only one being hit was him. So why is he being charged with aggravated battery and they're not charged with aggravated battery? Do you see him hit them in that video? I don't see him hit them in that video. There is no sound in the video released by Daniels. The attorney said that he has a copy with audio, but he declined to share it. And I want to know why, this part right here. Why is he declining to share the video with the audio? Federal authorities looked into the charges against Hobbs in Georgia to determine whether he had violated his probation, stemming from his 2014 guilty plea to a charge of conspiracy to commit bank and wire fraud, according to court records. Whether or not he had violated his probation, that still doesn't give you the right to beat him down. See, this is the problem. They like to bring up people's past. They're like, let me bring up their past convictions. Let's explain to people, hey, he violated his probation. So that means he deserves to be punched in the head multiple times? And let's talk about this. Charge of conspiracy to commit bank and wire fraud. Why would someone do that? Why would someone and not excusing it, but why would someone try to do that? Economic despair. Economic despair. A judge's order October 20th said a probation officer testified that Hobbs had punched one deputy in the face while punching another deputy in the side of the head. Didn't see that in the video. One deputy sustained a bruised eye and a broken hand as a result of the incident. Maybe he broke his hand when he was punching him in the head. See, what you got to understand, they're going to take the officer's side. They're going to try to make it so that they're not going to try to make it seem like the officers are in the wrong, even if they are in the wrong. They're going to take their side. I don't know. If you're constantly punching someone in the head, maybe you can break your hand that way too. It is also noted that Hobbs was punched in the head and that the probation officer was unaware of the exact sequence of events. How are you unaware? Okay. It is unclear on the video recording to what extent Hobbs fought the jailers. In most of the video, Hobbs is either obscured by the guards surrounding him or is out of the frame. His attorney Daniels said Hobbs would have been justified to fight back against the guards attacking him unlawfully. So this is important for people to know. He said the guard with the broken hand injured himself by punching a wall after he swung at Hobbs. But that was not the statement that was sent to the judge. Court records show a federal judge in North Carolina revoked Hobbs' probation November 7th after finding he had violated the terms of his supervised release. However, the court dismissed alleged probation violations based on the struggle with the jailers in Georgia. The court record doesn't say why. So there's no reason here. Guys, this is shady. This is really shady. They decided to dismiss his probation violation. But in the court records, they don't even tell you why they decided to do that. Doesn't that seem weird to you? They're going on to say, oh, because of the struggle with the jailers in Georgia. Okay. So then that tells me that those guards, those officers were guilty. Goes on to say the court record doesn't say why. I'll tell you why, because they were wrong. Daniel said he obtained the video after it was submitted as evidence into a federal probation case. He said Hobbs remains in custody in North Carolina. The physical wounds have healed the best they can, but mentally, no. He thought he was going to die. What you saw in that video, to me, was a lot of rage, which I've seen police officers have. I told you guys the story the other night. I remember seeing police officers in Baltimore beat up a homeless man. When I was a kid, I saw that. I saw that same type of rage. And it's a problem. And people wonder why we say defund the police. People wonder why we say this. Give them money for what? So they can harass people more, so they can beat people up more? What if we never would have seen this video? What if we never knew about that? Something has to change with policing in this country. And people shouldn't have to have a camera on them or hope that there's a camera nearby so that they can get out with their life or so that they can get justice from police brutality. But this is where we are. Terrible. But again, this goes back to what I said before. This is exactly why police officers should not do traffic stops. I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Kill Your E. Gorgie says, savages. Gamer, just terrible. This is terrible. Corey says, cops have a whole army behind them and a full Batman belt and still get scared of an unarmed black man having a mental health crisis. SMH. And that's another good thing to bring up, because how do we not know, like when they said he was kicking the cell door, how do we not know he wasn't having a mental breakdown? We don't know. Lawrence, amazing. Multiple videos and the cops didn't care that they were likely caught on video because they know that likely they will be protected. Thank you for the super chat, Rosie. Internal investigation. How on earth do they get away with this? They're the ones who should be locked up. External officials need to step up. Can we talk about this for a second? I think there needs to be a rule that police departments, county jails cannot investigate themselves. That should be a rule, because obviously you're going to show some bias towards yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're going to protect your department. It should be an external investigation. People from the outside should come in and investigate that police department. We saw this issue with the documentary Making a Murderer. I don't know if you guys have seen that documentary on Netflix. If you haven't, you should check it out. Similar issue where the police department was trying to investigate themselves. So then they try to retry this case again. So they had to bring in people, lawyers, new lawyers that came in and said, no, we want an external investigation of this police department. You shouldn't even have to do that. A lot of times when these things happen, it's because the family requests it. The family is requesting an external investigation. A lot of times when the body cam footage is released, it's because the family is requesting it. Shouldn't even be that difficult. Steve, Sabby, it happens every day. Absolutely. It does, Steve. And JB says a criminal and civil suit should be filed and I would sue the pants off of them. And you know what? He doesn't live in Georgia, so he would be safely back in North Carolina. I'll take that comment on Rockfin. You got to be careful suing police departments if you're still living in the same district, because that was another thing they found out on Making a Murderer. You sue the police department and you still living in the same town, the police not going to like you so much. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin Roger. Trump promised in 2016 Medicare for all on a 60 Minutes interview, promised to have Medicare renegotiate for lower drug prices. He was going to shift the tax burden from workers to the wealthy, rein in the banks, and break them up and stop outsourcing of manufacturing jobs. Release JFK tapes. Let's press him on that and say, you never did that. Make Joe scared to death. Maybe force him to do himself before elections. Those are all good points, Roger. Thank you for this tip as well. The question, Sabby, is not what if we've never seen that video, but what other videos have we not seen? Good point. And thank you for this tip, Laura. Yes, Sabby, I was hit by a guy who was speeding, ran a red, and was probably high. My family said he looked high at the hospital. He nearly killed me. And looking at reports, the cops did a drug test on me, but not on him. Come to find out that he was a cop's brother. My father said they're not going to do a thing to him. They're like frat boys. They're going to brush it under the carpet because of his brother. That's right, Laura. They protect each other. They protect each other, and they look out for each other's family as well. So that's that. A kid, please consider the mentality that police have to have in order to beat someone nearly to death. Police leadership instill this work culture. The system has to be broken from the top. Agreed. Agreed. We're going to go to our next story here, which is about Glenn Greenwald discussing funding. And he's spot on here. Before I get to his statement, I want to show you the article that he is referring to, because yes, yet again, the White House has decided to give more money to Ukraine. I kid you not, it happened this week. So let's go ahead and get into that story. The White House requests $37.7 billion in new Ukraine funding, $10 billion for COVID relief. Let's go down. Just going to get to the article here. The White House is requesting nearly $40 billion in new funding from Congress to support Ukraine and an additional $10 billion for pandemic relief. Something I want to highlight here to draw to your attention. Notice it says the White House. That means the request is coming from President Biden. The request is not coming from Congress. So he is asking Congress to do it. I like to point this out every time they talk about more funding going to Ukraine. Sometimes it comes from Congress, but sometimes it's coming from Joe Biden. So just FYI. The figure includes $21.7 billion for defense purposes like equipment and military support, $14.5 billion in direct funding for the country's government and humanitarian aid, $626 million in energy assistance, and $900 million for, give me a second. $900 million for healthcare. When I told you guys, when they were sending aid to them, it's not just for weapons and support. Believe me, Glenn Greenwald was actually the first person that I saw that called this out, and he mentioned it in his Substack newsletter, and he actually broke it down. So when I hear people talk about this and they say, well, we have to send them weapons, and they're not doing their due diligence and looking into what these packages are, that's really frustrating, because people need to know, and you need to know, that they're giving them more than just that. Why are they giving them $900 million for healthcare? Where's our healthcare? You guys see this? Energy assistance, humanitarian aid, healthcare. But they don't want to give us healthcare. Somebody explain. Somebody has to push back on them about this. The next person that's interviewed, whether it's Rokana, Joe Biden, or whoever gets that interview, push back on this and ask them, why are you giving another country health care? And this is the second time I've seen them give them health care with these packages. Why are you giving them health care, but you're not giving us health care? Push back on the next person, one of you guys watching, the next one of you that interviews Rokana, because I know he'll be coming back around. He's the only one that comes on independent media. Ask him about this. It goes on to say, since the beginning of the war, the United States has rallied the world to support Ukraine. By the way, other countries have backed off. Germany's not sending them any more aid, you guys. They're not sending, France not sending him no money. They're not sending them no aid. It's us. Let's go on here. Now, this is coming from Nancy Pelosi. Together with strong bipartisan support in Congress, we have provided significant assistance that has been critical to Ukraine's success on the battlefield, and we cannot let that support run dry. But you can allow for our support to run dry, Pelosi. You can allow for American people to seriously not be able to feed their families, to struggle to pay for groceries. You can allow American people to have to ration their diabetes medicine, their insulin. You can allow the American people to sit up here and suffer because they can't afford to pay for cancer treatments, and people are going in debt and bankrupt because of illnesses like that here in this country, because of inadequate health insurance, or because they don't have health insurance. But you can't let that happen to them. Roughly 3/4 of the funding previously approved by Congress has already been spent, with more slated to be used before the end of the year. Now, that's according to administration officials. The amount includes funding to address energy and food shortages as a result of the war. Ladies and gentlemen, we have food shortages right here. Didn't we have a baby formula short? Where was the aid for us? Prior to the midterm elections, congressional Republicans suggested aid to Ukraine could be cut. Were they going to win the majority? Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who is expected to become Speaker if Republicans retake the House of Representatives as projected, which they did, said last month that Ukraine funding could be pared down if he's in the majority. Other House Republicans, like Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, said at the beginning of the month, not another penny will go to Ukraine. Why isn't the progressives, why aren't the progressives in Congress making that same statement? Why aren't the progressives in Congress saying anything about the U.S. government giving Ukraine $900 million in health care, but not giving the American people health care? All of them ran on Medicare for all. Why aren't they speaking out about that? Biden has criticized the suggestion. These guys don't get it. It's a lot bigger than Ukraine. It's Eastern Europe. It's NATO. It's really serious consequential outcomes. NATO was not supposed to expand in the first place. That's part of the reason why we're here now. The formal funding request also includes $9.25 billion for pandemic relief and $750 million to address other infectious diseases. The White House is requesting $2.5 billion for pandemic jab access and replenishing the strategic national stockpile. You know, it's interesting to me how they can just come up with money when they need it, how they can just easily, just magically just come up with that money. But whenever it comes to money for the people, they say we can't afford it. Joe Biden on the debate stage, we can't afford to do Medicare for all. It's too expensive. You can afford to do this, though. You can afford to send billions to Ukraine every other month, every 2 weeks. Administration officials argue the funding is necessary to prevent a potential surge in cases this winter. Now, that's going on about the pandemic relief. I want to get to this part here where Glenn Greenwald chimes in and he gives his rant about this. Listen to this, because I told you guys he was tracking this from the very beginning, the spending, right? U.S. funding for war in Ukraine in 9 months. I'll make this bigger. Okay. U.S. funding for war in Ukraine in 9 months. March, 13.6 billion. May, 40 billion. November, 37.7 billion. Biden's new request. That's 91.3 billion is 33% more than Russia's total military spending for the year. It's double the U.S. average annual expenditure for its own war in Afghanistan. You see, they put this context here. Look at this. You guys see this? Readers added context they thought people might want to know. Do you find this helpful? You see this? Context is written by people who use Twitter. And boy, I tell you, he goes on and he says, if we project out to a year, that would be 120 billion each year to fuel the U.S. proxy war in Ukraine. That's roughly 1/8 of the entire U.S. military budget for the year. By far the world's largest. I'm going to get into that in a second. I'm going to show you some numbers. Congrats to Raytheon, General Dynamics, and the CIA. And there's a picture here of Biden, and that's him linking that article there of him requesting more aid. He goes on to say, don't worry. I'm sure these billions in weapons flying around DC and Ukraine are being meticulously accounted for. That's why Dems and GOP united to block Rand Paul's amendment for oversight. No need. Raytheon, CIA, and Ukraine are famous for transparent and honest accounting. And he links this here. What happens to weapons sent to Ukraine? The U.S. doesn't really know. Now, that was from CNN. See this? He goes on to say, in case anyone objects to calling what's happening in Ukraine a U.S. proxy war, that's not the real debate. Top U.S. officials and the most influential defense policy operatives in D.C. call it that repeatedly, as did Noah Carl, documented here, because it is. And then he linked this article here from Noah Carl from Substack, Is Ukraine a Proxy War? And other people have explained this as well. Aaron Mate has explained this. Max Blumenthal has explained this. Noam Chomsky hasn't. It is a proxy war. Let's go on. I think that was the end of that one there. And then if you want to see this article, which I think, Eric, if you can put the link to this article to people in the chat so they can see, they can read the entire article. But Noah Carl really breaks it down here for you guys if you want to read about this. I'm not going to get into all of it tonight because we've talked about that before. But another thing I want to add, we want to talk about the funding, right? I want to talk about the defense budget. I noticed something over time. The defense budget has just been increasing and increasing and increasing over the years. In fact, we're going to go back all the way to 1960. And I want to show you just how drastically it has increased over the decades. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger for the people in the back. U.S. military spending defense budget 1960 to 2022. Now, that's as far back as this chart would let me go. I was going to try to go all the way back to like the New Deal because I was going to try to prove a point, but I couldn't go back that far. So we went back to the 60s. So let me show you what we have here. Let's go down. It's this graph that I really want to show you because I think this is the most compelling Now, zoom out just a bit so you can see. Okay, that's better. 1960 to 2022, defense spending. Look at this. So these are the billions. So the first line here is the billions, and this bottom line here, that's percent of GDP. So if we want to look at billions of US dollars here, 1960, 47.35 billion. 47.35 billion, you guys. As you see over time, it increases. But I'm going to go to the 90s. Right about boop here. 1992. 325 billion. 325 billion. Make this a little bit bigger because it is a little small. For 1992. Now, if I remember correctly, this could have been around the time of the Gulf Operation Desert Storm. I believe it was around that time, 91, 92-ish. So you can see the increase there, right? Now, so far, we've gone from 47.35 billion from 1960 to 1990, 325 billion. That's a big increase. But here's where the shit gets out of hand. We go from that. Now we're going to 2000. And then we're going to come up. And remember, 1992, I'm trying to remember. I don't think Clinton was in just yet. I have to go back and check. That might have been Bush Sr. All right, let's go on. Watch how it increases. Now we're in 2003. We've already jumped to 440 billion. Let's go on. I'm going to have to scoot this over a little bit. Yep. Boop. Now I have to make it smaller again. Okay. So we've already jumped to 440 billion 2003. Then shit just hit the fucking face. Like we went from that to boop. Once we got to 2011, 752 billion. How did we go from a little over 40 billion in 1960 to now over $700 billion? How? Thanks, Spanky Monkey. Clinton took office January 20th, 1993. Okay, so yes, so that 1992, that was under Bush Sr. How do we get to the... So now we want to keep going. And then you'll see after 2011, we'll start to decrease. It'll drop. And then now it's going back up again. So we're back at $778 billion. Did I miss something? What happened? Even if I go back 2011, I'm trying to think, what happened? Okay, so we know we have Afghanistan and stuff. Guys, there's no excuse for this type of spending. There's no excuse for it. So we can spend all this when it comes to defense, but we can't spend money on the American people. We can't raise the minimum wage federally. So the Democrats in the Senate, 7 of them will vote against that. But they'll vote for increasing the defense budget. Defend us against what? Is somebody coming after us? Is something happening that I don't know about? What do we need such a large defense budget for? Not to mention the fact that the United States has bases all across the world. It's pathetic. This is just another excuse as to why they can't give us anything. They want to police the world. They want to extract resources from other countries so that the U.S. is the superpower and nobody else gets a chance to catch up or get ahead. And they don't want to give us anything. This is a huge problem. And more people need to call out this spending. Eric, feel free to share this with people, this link with people in the chat, because they can see more here if they scroll down as well. But look at us compared to other countries, you guys. Like the United States government. Now, this is comparing us to similar country ranking. The United States, $778.23 billion for defense. The UK, $59.24 billion. By the way, in the UK, they have nationalized health care. See, all their people have health care. Saudi Arabia, $57.52 billion. Germany, $52.76 billion. By the way, also with Germany, all their people have health care. You see what I'm getting at? This makes no sense. When you compare us to the other countries, this is ridiculous. France, 52.76. France, 52.75 billion. Again, they have healthcare for everybody. That's just the top. This is unbelievable. When you compare us to the other countries, this makes absolutely no sense. None at all. We cannot do this. And so the next time that someone interviews a congressman or a congresswoman, especially if you're an independent media, ask them about this damn defense budget. Thank you for the reminder, Israel. Yes, thank you for that reminder. Yeah, Germany has free college too. Because you see, they realize we need to put the money into our community, into our people. We need to uplift the people. France realized, and the people in France rose up too. So that's part of it. France realized we need to put the money in the communities. We need to help the people. The United States said, fuck the people. Let's ramp up our defense. These are things that need to change. There's really no excuse for this. So yes, this is U.S. military spending defense budget from 1960 to 2022. So, Eric, if you can share that with people, that would be great, so that people can see, so that other people can share this with their friends as well. So you guys can share this with other people so that they can see that. Because when people make excuses for the president or for Congress and say, well, they don't have the money to do that, I want you guys to show them this link and show them they do have the money. So Glenn Greenwald is 100% correct here. This is ridiculous. How much money is going to continue to go out the door before people do something or say something? Like, this is a mess, absolute mess. I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Thank you for the super chat, Allie. Sabby, please look into FTX, the donations done to the Dems and possible Ukraine investment into FTX. Also, Afro-Cuban jazz is awesome. Yes, it is. It is awesome. I will look into that. I'll check that out. Mark, my job who pays us minimum is asking us to donate food. Do you guys hear this? Yipper 99, I couldn't get eggs at the store. Right. Like, and you guys see it too. You go to the grocery stores, you see some of the shelves are half empty. Lawrence, that money never leaves the U.S. mainland, gets channeled to the weapons manufacturers who get wealthy by shipping the weapons to Ukraine. Bingo. Thank you for the super chat, Larez. Dims. Oh, I think this is a symbol you try to put here. Dims, UAB for Dims money before Republicans take House, but no Medicare for all. Roe v. Wade. Yep. Can't figure out the student loan blockage, though. after he made all those promises to people. Thank you for the super chat, Andrew. TYT and BP did live coverage of Trump's announcement. They criticized MSM for giving him free press. And now they're doing the same thing. Well, I don't know. I don't watch either one of them. So, and Heineken Thompson, it is not defense budget. It is an attack budget. There you go. And I think I have comments on Rockfin as well. I'll go ahead and take those. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the tip, Dave. On Rockfin, the corruption in police departments and government seats and courts in this U.S. place is the highest corruption and violence in any European-derived system on the planet ever made to happen, happening now. Also, the federal money appropriations are a very dangerous farce. Well said. And thank you for this tip, Roger. Let's all get in alignment. Next time they ask us how we are going to pay for it, just tell them Congress will pay for it the same way they pay for everything else, by legislating new money into existence, seeing that is its job. Legislating new money into existence, just like they do to pay for the Pentagon spending, Ukraine, and money to subsidize big pharma, bailing out banks and corporations, etc. That's right. That's right. I'm going to get into this next story. This is also about money. You know, no shade to Dolly Parton. Dolly is probably one of the most pleasant people, great singer, and she's very well loved. This is not on Dolly. But this shit is on Jeff Bezos and Amazon. So if you have not heard this story, Dolly Parton has received a $100 million award from Jeff Bezos. Let's get into that. Dolly Parton receives $100 million Bezos Courage and Civility Award. What she's done for kids, literacy, and so many other things is just incredible. Now, that's coming from Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, said in presenting Parton with the award. Let's go on. There's Dolly there. I'm sorry. Every time I see a picture of Dolly Parton, I think about that song, Working 9 to 5. Okay. Dolly Parton was awarded $100 million prize as part of the Bezos Courage and Civility Award Saturday by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and his longtime partner, Lauren Sanchez. The award recognizes leaders who aim high, find solutions, and who always do it with civility, granting them the money to direct to charity if they see fit. Sanchez said Saturday evening. Why are you giving? I got to come in here for a second. Amazon workers have been trying to form unions from different Amazon warehouses. Okay. They're not even asking for the world. They're just asking for some basic dignity and respect and rights. Amazon workers have been trying to do that. Amazon CEO and other players have been trying to prevent them from getting that to happen. They had to fight to get the $15 an hour wage. Remember, Bernie Sanders was a part of that a couple years ago. They had to fight for that, right? People are still taking pee breaks into bottles, like peeing into bottles because they don't have enough time for a break. And many other things that happened during the pandemic with those employees as well. Instead of giving that $100 million award to Dolly Parton, why didn't Jeff Bezos give that money to the workers? Why didn't Jeff Bezos just give that money, put that money to the Amazon employees, increasing their wages? Why didn't you just give that money to them? Especially the ones who have been on strike. Why are you giving $100 million to Dolly Parton, who's already rich and does not need $100 million? And then to tell her, you can go give this to a charity of your choice. that tells me that Amazon and Jeff Bezos, they have enough money to pay these workers what they need to be paid and to give them the benefits that they truly deserve. But Jeff Bezos want to give $100 million to somebody who's already a millionaire. This is the kind of stupid shit that rich people do. Like, I'm sorry, but it's just, let me give millions of money to someone who's already a millionaire instead of helping out the people who really need to be helped. That money should have went to the Amazon employees. So it goes on to say, before he presented Parton with the award, Bezos said, "The woman you're about to meet embodies these ideals so thoroughly. She gives with her heart. What she's done for kids, literacy, and many other things is just incredible." And I'm not trying to knock Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton does a lot of charitable work. But I mean, it's just like, he gave this money to Dolly Parton. He gave this money to Van Jones. He gave it to Jose Andre. It's like, why are you giving this money to people who don't need it? That's right, Casey. Loophole shit. Exactly. Exactly. And so it goes on to say, "Wow, did you say 100 million? Parton said after she was called to the stage, "When people are in a position to help, you should help. And I know that I've always said I try to put my money where my heart is." Now, here's another reason why I'm going to tell you why this is a big issue. Because if you have not heard, this just came out. Amazon is going to slash 10,000 jobs starting this week. Let's get into it. Amazon to slash 10,000 jobs starting this week. Now, here's the report. Let's get into it. Amazon is planning. Amazon is planning to lay off 10,000 employees in its corporate and technology sectors beginning this week, according to a report. The culling would be the largest number of job cuts undertaken at any point in history of the Seattle-based e-commerce giant, which is also feeling the effects of stiff economic headwinds that have hamstrung large tech firms. News of the planned layoffs was first reported by the New York Times. The Post has sought comment from Amazon. The layoffs will primarily affect those involved with projects linked to Amazon's voice assistant, Alexa, as well as its retail and human resources departments, according to the Times. You know, HR always be like the first ones to go. I'm just being honest. Like when they do layoffs, like HR used to be the first ones. The company reportedly has yet to settle on a specific number of job cuts, though laying off 10,000 people would account for around 3% of its corporate headcount and less than 1% of its 1.5 million global workforce. But they got $100 million just to give to Dolly Parton. Shares of Amazon declined 2.3% on Monday. The stock is down about 41% for the year and is on pace for its worst year since 2008. Ouch. Shares have declined. I guess people just aren't looking to order from Amazon as much as they used to. I don't know. It goes on to say Amazon is the latest blue chip company to announce it's significantly trimming its workforce as part of an effort to tighten belts. Twitter recently was acquired by Tesla CEO Elon Musk, who laid off half of its workforce. Some 3,700 Twitter employees lost their jobs in recent days. Meta, Facebook's parent company, cut 13% of its staff, which translates to some 11,000 employees who were given pink slips. Lyft, Stripe, Microsoft, Shopify, Netflix, and Snap have also slashed their headcounts by hundreds. Disney also reported company-wide layoffs and a hiring freeze on Friday with all that money that Disney has. Do you guys know how many companies Disney owns? Okay. I might have to pull up the mouse ears in a second. Amazon most recent earnings report included a horror show revenue forecast that predicted a weak holiday shopping season. Wow, 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 wow. The company forecasts net sales of between 140 billion and 148 billion for the fourth quarter of this year. The forecast falls short of analyst estimates of 155.15 billion. It probably fell short because people don't really have the money to spend like that. We are dealing with inflation. So what's one of the first things that people cut? People don't buy things that they don't need, right? That's one of the first things you'll stop doing. So there's more to this that I want to show you. Now, Didi shared this on Twitter. Didi called it out. Tech layoff. Meta, 11,000 people. Twitter, 3.7K. Intel, 20%. Snap, 20%. Netflix, 450. Robinhood, 30%. Stripe and Lyft, 13%. Salesforce, 2K. Amazon, 2K. I was actually surprised by Salesforce. Like 2 years ago, Salesforce was ranked one of the best companies to work for in the country. They were up there. For people who are wondering, like, what is a Salesforce? We actually used to use it at Boston University. We used it for record keeping. So like in Salesforce, like the admissions applications for the business school, that actually goes through a system, which is Salesforce. So you can pull all the applications there. You can pull the reports, download those reports. So it's like, I don't know if you want to say database per se, but that's kind of how Salesforce works. Like it's one of those things that's kind of tricky to use if you're not trained on it. But once you're trained on it, like Salesforce is easy to use and it can be a time saver, I've found. But I was surprised that even they are laying people off. Okay. 120K plus layoffs. 2001.com layoffs were 107K. Quarter four layoffs have just begun. A brutal cold tech winter is coming. Let's all remember this here, because this is the piece that Joe Biden is not explaining to people when he talks about the economy is doing a great job. They're letting you know right now, the layoffs that we're having right now, this is actually higher than the layoffs that happened during the .com layoffs, which was 107K. And this is what I've been saying for the past couple of months. Every time I see Biden on TV and he says the economy's doing great, I've added all these jobs. They're not considering the fact, or they're not mentioning to people that people are still being laid off. Now, this was made public information, and these are just the companies that have come forward. This doesn't include the companies that haven't put a statement out there, but people are still being laid off. And these are tech jobs. So if the tech people, I don't know, can we get a general strike through the tech people? I don't know. And then you got to wonder, who's doing the coding? Are they going to dump that work on the employees that are left, or has it been automated? Maybe it has been automation, because they still have to keep the work going. Facebook still has to operate. Twitter still has to operate. Let's go back. So this is important. And Didi also put this here. It's called a layoffs tracker. So if you guys want to look at that, because he's been keeping track of this, 788 tech companies with layoffs. Employees laid off in 2022. You see this? See, Joe Biden isn't telling you this when he talks about the economy. This is why it's so important to have independent media. Disclaimers, I didn't compare percentage of workforce because I didn't have the data. If anyone does, please let me know. I didn't include percentages for some firms, not because they're small, but because they weren't in the headlines and I reached char limit. Thank you for that, Didi. Things to be on the lookout for in reference to the economy. Andrew Yang will be here Monday night, and I'm going to ask him about that in reference to automation with coding. Simone says you can't sell anything to broke people. This is true. That's true. Very interesting. I'm going to go to some of these comments and then we'll get to the next story here. Juliet, he does not need to give people awards. He needs to pay his workers. Right. Right. Like he could do that, but he can't pay people. Jilly Love. Also, there's an online event tomorrow for peace in Ukraine with Jill Stein and Corbyn and others. That's right. That's right. Thank you for that announcement, Jilly Love. Oops, not tomorrow. The 19th, Saturday. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Oh, well, so much for learning coding. You know, people at those coding boot camps right now are probably like, wait a minute, say what? Joanne, I used to order everything from Amazon, but I don't like how they treat employees. So I now buy directly from other companies if I can. Right on, Joanne. Right on. Synthetics. And when people laid off end up driving for Uber Eats, they will say unemployment is low. That's a good point. Well said. Okay. We're getting to our final story here, which is Donald Trump's announcement. Yes, I can't believe this is happening. But yes, he has announced that he is going to run again. I do have two clips here that I want to play for you, and I want to get your opinion about. If you haven't had a chance to do so, please go ahead and take that poll. If Joe Biden runs in 2024 against Donald Trump, will he win? Let me know, and we'll reveal the results after this segment. So let's go ahead and start it off with this clip here from CNN. Here we go.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. All of you. Thank you. Thank you. So many incredible friends and family here tonight. It's such a beautiful thing. Some people say, how do you speak before so many people all the time? When there's love in the room, it's really easy, if you want to know the truth. It really is. You ought to try it sometime. Together, we will be taking on the most corrupt forces and entrenched interests imaginable. Our country is in a horrible state. We're in grave trouble. This is not a task for a politician or a conventional candidate. This is a task for a great movement that embodies the courage, confidence, and the spirit of the American people. This is a movement. This is not for any one individual. This is a job for tens of millions of proud people working together from all across the land and from all.
I just wanted to pause there for a second because I want to say something. Notice he said this is a movement. This is not a job for individual people. What does that sound like to you? Doesn't that sound similar to what Bernie Sanders said? It's not me, it's us. We need a movement across this country. Pay close attention, guys.
All walks of life, young and old, black and white, Hispanic and Asian, many of whom we have brought together for the very, very first time. If you look at the numbers, if you look at what's happened with Hispanic, with African American, with Asian, and just look at what's happening. This is a party that has become much bigger, much stronger, much more powerful, can do much more good for our country. This is a job for grandmothers and construction workers, firefighters, builders, teachers, doctors, and farmers who cannot stay quiet any longer. You can't stay quiet any longer. You're angry about what's happening to our country. Our country is being destroyed before your very eyes. It's a job for every aspiring young person and every hard-working parent for every entrepreneur and underappreciated police officer who is ready to shout for safety in America. The police are being treated so badly.
Oh, fuck that. The police are being treated so badly. I just showed you a video of the police beating the shit out of a man. This is what he's going to run on. He's going to run on, we got to protect the police. He's going to run on, we have to get America back to what it was. He's going to run on the economy. Like, don't get me wrong. He's going to run on the economy. And that may win people over, the economy portion. But he's also going to run on the police. He's going to run on the crime. Remember, I told you the crime numbers the other day, right? I told you they lied about the crime statistics. Crime has been decreasing. But he's going to run on that. Watch.
These are great people that can straighten out the crime. They're the ones that know how to do it. We have to give them back their respect and their dignity. This will not be my campaign. This will be our campaign all together.
Me?
Because the only force strong enough to defeat the massive corruption we are up against is you, the American people. It's true. The American people, the greatest people on earth. We love them all. And we love both sides. We're going to bring people together. We're going to unify people. And it was happening in the previous administration, previous to the previous. And what was bringing them together was success. Prior to COVID coming in, the people were calling me, that were calling me. You wouldn't believe it.
So he said, we're going to bring people together. What does that sound like to you? Who does that remind you of? We're going to unite people. We're going to create a movement across this country. It sounds Bernie-ish, minus the police shit. It sounds Bernie-ish. So this time around, it seems like he's going to try to run on some type of unity message. He doesn't sound the same as he did when he ran in 2016. He don't sound the same.
People that were so far left, I figured they'd never speak to me and I would never speak to them. But our success was so incredible.
You've been listening
like never before.
To the former president announcing that he...
That didn't even make any sense what he just said. People so far to the left who would never speak to me and I would never speak to them, but we got so much accomplished. How you get shit accomplished if you ain't talk to each other? Okay.
Is running for president again, rewriting the history, most recently of the midterm elections. Back with Dana Bash, Caitlin Collins, Alyssa Farah-Griffin joining us as well, CNN presidential historian Tim Naftali. Dana, any thoughts on what you just heard?
Well, he certainly tried to heed the warnings of those around him. Well, what they really wanted him to do was not make this announcement right now. But given the fact that he rebuffed that in terms of the content of the speech, tried to stay on policy, tried to remind people of the issues that many of the Republican supporters and some independents believed in, and stay away from the grievances. He didn't actually, talk about what went wrong in 2020. He did, no question, mislead in a very, very big way about what happened in 2022.
Well, he actually intimated that China controlled the election.
Oh, there's that too. Okay, fair point. Fair point. Thank you for that.
But clearly he had been told.
Which, by the way, nobody has.
He'd also been, of course, but he'd also been clearly told not to. Be talking about 2020. He ad-libbed that part and then sort of said, "Okay, but I know, and moved on."
Yeah, and just on one of the main reasons why people didn't want him to do this, was because of what happened last Tuesday and in the days since then, because so many of the candidates he endorsed did not win in the primary and then in the general election.
Are people moving away from Trump MAGA? Because the only candidate I know that he did endorse that did win was J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance was a Trumper candidate and he beat Tim Ryan, right? Tim Ryan, the one who was against canceling the student loan debt. So he lost to that guy. Are people moving away from Donald Trump? And I ask this question because Candace Owens has spoken out against Donald Trump. Of course, that was before he announced that he's running. Now that he announced that he's running, she's kissing his ass again. But that's another story. People have been speaking out against him, including another clip I'm going to show you in a second of another person who's speaking out against him on Fox News. Are people moving away from the idea of Donald Trump and this whole MAGA element here? Do people want something different? Do people want to go back to what the Republican Party was before Donald Trump? Is that the case? Because I am seeing a little bit of a difference. I am seeing a little bit of a shift among some people. Are more people moving towards someone like a Ron DeSantis? And that's another question. Do you think that Ron DeSantis, if he ran against Donald Trump in the Republican primary, do you think that Ron DeSantis would beat Donald Trump? Let's go on.
He tried to make the point that in the House, all of these candidates he endorsed won. The people he's talking about were going to win no matter what because they're in ruby red seats. The only candidates in crossover districts, in swing districts he supported, lost. 4 of them, they all lost. In the Senate, in the governor's races, Carrie Lake, Blake Masters, Dr. Oz, Doug Mastriano, and the lists go on and on and on and on and on. That's the reality.
I want to note 2 things. One, there's a split screen moment where Biden is talking about what is happening in Poland. You can't really ignore that happening moments before Trump came out. Biden tweeted from his account about Trump being a failure while in office as this speech was happening. What stood out to me about Trump is, he didn't really go into depth about the 2020 election, but it's looming over all of this. That he, as he was trying to fight to stay in power, caused this deadly riot that happened at the Capitol that day. I think a lot of this is driven by the investigations that are facing him. I think that has to do potentially with the timing based on the conversations that he's had.
Okay, so I'm not going to play that entire video, but something that I wanted to say when I first heard this announcement was, why do you even want to run? Why would you run? Why would you run again? How old is Donald Trump? Why wouldn't you want to? Look, if I was that age, I would just want to live my life. I just want to live my life. Enjoy the rest of your life. That's what I would want to do. Why do you want to run for president again? Why? This kind of feels like an ego. It's ego driven to me. It's ego driven. But I noticed something different about his tone this time around. Do you think that maybe someone may have coached him and told him this time around, you're going to have to be softer with your language? Do you think that's the case? He don't sound the same. Don't get me wrong. I still think he's full of shit, but he don't sound the same. Now, I want to play this clip here where he talks about the funding. And this is the piece I really do believe if he were to beat Joe Biden, there's a couple things he says here that I think would put him over the edge that could make him win. And that's why I said a lot of the focus has to be on the economy. Now, once again, we have 2 candidates that a lot of people don't want. A lot of people don't want Joe Biden. A lot of people don't want Donald Trump. So maybe this will be the time for a third-party candidate or independent candidate to really rise up and disrupt it. Maybe this is that time. Listen to what he says here.
We are a failing nation. For millions of Americans, the past.
Oh, Eric, can we do, I forgot this video volume's low. Can we do volume booster on this one? And then I think I have to run it back to 951. Yeah. Thanks.
I made big promises to the American people, and unlike other presidents, I kept my promises. I kept them.
Sometimes it's just this video. Hold on.
Thank you very much.
There we go.
Under our leadership, we were a great and glorious nation. something you haven't heard for quite a long period of time. We were a strong nation, and importantly, we were a free nation. But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. For millions of Americans, the past 2 years under Joe Biden have been a time of pain, hardship, anxiety, and despair.
See, so that piece right there, the economy, the inflation, the prices, like all of it, that's going to be a big one. And then I just told you about all those layoffs that are happening, which Joe Biden ain't telling you about. Wait till you hear this part.
As we speak, inflation is the highest in over 50 years. Gas prices have reached the highest levels in history and expect them to go much higher now that the strategic national reserves, which I filled up, have been virtually drained in order to keep gasoline prices lower just prior to the election. Joe Biden has intentionally surrendered our energy independence. There is no longer even a thought of dominance, and we are now begging for energy help from foreign nations, many of whom find us detestable. Our southern border has been erased, and our country is being invaded by millions and millions of unknown people, many of whom are entering for a very bad and sinister reason.
Dude, Joe Biden is building onto the same wall that you built. And he's saying our border is being erased. Joe Biden is continuing. You guys know this? Joe Biden is continuing Donald Trump's border wall. Yeah, people are still coming through, but we've talked about this before. Most people are crossing over, not at the border on the ground, but through the airlines. That's how most of them are getting through. So it just...
And you know what that reason is. We will be paying a big price for this invasion into our country for years to come. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of deadly drugs, including very lethal fentanyl, are flooding across the now open and totally porous southern border.
People are making fentanyl here in the U.S. in their own apartments. It doesn't have to come across the southern border, the Mexican border. People know how to make it, you guys. People know how to make it. I saw this on Intervention. I've seen the documentaries. People know how to make it. Greg Bruce says he seems to be running a much more conventional campaign this time. So it's just the drug thing. Like I've said before, I don't know, man. I don't know if that is really going to pull people the way it did before. Because it's like, again, we all know that you had already started building the wall, and we know that Joe Biden has been adding on to that wall. So what's the reason this time?
The blood-soaked streets of our once great cities are cesspools of violent crimes, which are being watched all over the world as leadership of other countries explain that this is what America and democracy is really all about. How sad. The United States has been embarrassed, humiliated, and weakened for all to see. The disasters in Afghanistan, perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, where we lost lives, left Americans behind, and surrendered $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world. And Ukraine, which would have never happened if I were your president, are something.
That piece right there. Because that piece that he mentioned about Ukraine, and we just went over the money going to Ukraine, that piece right there might be something that could actually help him, that could give him a leg up over Joe Biden. Because that's a big one, because a lot of us are pissed. We're tired of the money going over there, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or not. But that piece right there, that it would have never happened under him. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, both of these guys, they're still both bad choices, regardless. But the piece about Ukraine could be key for him.
And even the Democrats admit that. That's something I've seen them admit over and over again. But our enemies are speaking of us with scorn and laughter and derision because of those two events. But there are many more. Even just today, a missile was sent in, probably by Russia, to Poland, 50 miles into Poland. And people are going absolutely wild and crazy, and they're not.
That was debunked, by the way. That actually, I just have to chime in and say that was corrected, by the way, for the record. They did say that in the beginning, but then they came back and had to retract that and say, oh, whoops, actually, it came from Ukraine. So the missile from Ukraine, it came from Ukraine into Poland. I have to add that in there because I know a lot of people reported that and then they had to come back and they had to retract it. So.
Happy. They are very, very angry. Now we have a president who falls asleep at global conferences, was held in contempt by the British Parliament over Afghanistan. Thanks to the words of wisdom, he said thank you to the wrong country for inviting him to a major summit on the environment, of all things. They fly for days to get there, and then he calls the country a name that was actually a country on another continent.
See, now he's going to go after Joe Biden's intellect here. See, this is another thing. I mean, I don't think that one's going to be as important as the funding to the Ukraine issue, but this is another thing that now he's had a chance to basically sit back and see how Joe Biden has run the country for the past, almost 2 years, right? So now he can come back and he can criticize Joe Biden's record. See, last time it wasn't that way. Last time Biden was able to criticize Trump's presidential record because he had already served as president. This time around, Trump can come back and criticize Joe Biden's presidential record. So it is different this time around.
And he's leading us to the brink of nuclear war, a concept unimaginable just 2 short years ago. You cannot mention the nuclear word. It's too devastating.
Yeah, so there's that piece too. But someone mentioned this in the chat, and I'll also say as well, but would he still have escalated things with Taiwan, though? Trump probably still would have escalated that because he was still against China. He doesn't want China to succeed. So he still probably would have gone down that road. But I don't know. We don't know.
The Green New Deal and the environment, which they say may affect us in 300 years, is all that is talked about. And yet nuclear weapons, which would destroy the world immediately, are never even discussed as a major threat. Can you imagine? They say the ocean will rise 1/8.
That's pretty tough.
Eighth of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years. But don't worry about nuclear weapons that can take out entire countries with one shot. Something is wrong with their thinking. Under Biden and the radical Democrats, America has been mocked, derided, and brought to its knees, perhaps like never before.
Okay, I'm not going to get into that entire speech there, but I do want to show you an example of someone who's really not feeling Trump that much anymore, and that's Stuart Varney, and he's a part of Fox Business, and I want you to hear what he has to say about Donald Trump now.
Most certainly running for president again. Let me put my opinion right up front. I don't think he can win, and in running, he bitterly divides the Republican Party. Why can't he win? Because what was popular 6 years ago is not so popular now. His hand-picked candidates lost in states that could have given the Republicans control of the Senate. His name-calling zingers, they're just not that funny anymore. Youngkin with a Chinese name, Ron DeSanctimonious. Working, is it?
Sorry, I think I'm going to have to refresh VNC. Did you refresh page? Yeah, but basically he's saying right now that what was popular then is not so popular now. So that's interesting.
For president, opinion right up front. I don't think he can win. And in running, he bitterly divides the Republican Party. Why can't he win? Because what was popular 6 years ago is not so popular now. His hand-picked candidates lost in states that could have given the Republicans control of the Senate. His name-calling zingers, they're just not that funny anymore. Youngkin, with a Chinese name, Ron DeSanctimonious, that's really not working, is it? The suspicion is that he's declaring early to clear the field of rivals. But that only works if his competitors are afraid of him. DeSantis, Youngkin, Pence, Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, not likely to bend the knee. Trump can't shake off his loss in 2018, 2020, and 2021, where he lost the Senate with his attacks on Georgia Republicans, and now 2022. The defeat of Oz, Masters, Bolduc, and now gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake of Arizona, those losses gave the far-left Democrats an opening which they have exploited at the expense of the country.
First of all, Democrats aren't far left. Those are just liberals, but okay.
This candidacy into a divided Republican Party, and you've got chaos, which only works to the advantage of the left. Why do you think the Democrats are urging him to run? Because they know they can beat him again. Look, I know this is very contentious stuff. I'm upsetting a lot of people. So let's bring in my colleague, Mike Huckabee, who is, I'm pretty sure, a Trump guy.
No.
Governor, it's decision time for Republicans. Should they choose a new generation to look forward, or a generation or a Trump who looks backward?
Why are you asking Mike Huckabee? Oh, God, this guy.
Where do you stand?
You know, I love the introduction. This is very contentious stuff. Let's bring in Mike Huckabee. Let's just throw a match on the gasoline. Why not?
You're a nice guy. You calm things down.
Well, I love Trump's policies. I love him personally. I wish the personal Trump that people get to know when they're around him off the stage was the Trump that the rest of the country would see. And I think they'd really find him entertaining and enjoyable, not so combative. You know, he can be the most likable and really fun guy to be around.
Governor, I had dinner with him in the White House, and he was utterly charming and entertaining in the extreme. And I loved his policies. I just think that 6 years on, he can't win. Do you think he can win in 2024?
You know, I didn't know that he could win in 2016, although after he beat the rest of us, including me, I decided that he could and should, and supported him again in 2020. Here's what I do wish. I wish that he would hold off on this announcement. I know he's not going to, but the timing of it has really no value at all because we need to get through this Senate race. I'm going to Georgia tomorrow to campaign for Herschel Walker. I think every Republican in the country wants to make sure we win that race. That's the only election that I'm interested in between now and at least when the slate is cleared on these elections and all the runoffs. Then we can start looking at 2024, but not a day before.
The Republican Party at this point, this is my opinion again, it's somewhat chaotic. Disputes over leadership in the Senate, leadership in the House, and Mr. Trump throwing his hat in. Would you disagree with that? That the Republicans are, in my opinion, in a state of chaos?
No, I don't disagree with it. And I think that's normal when we don't have the expectations met that we thought we were. I think all of us saw a red wave coming. I certainly did. I missed it. I just couldn't believe this country would continue to vote for Democrats, given the open border, the inflation, the crime rate, the disastrous management of things by Joe.
He already mentioned two lies. I told you guys we debunked the crime rate the other day and the open borders thing. Joe
Biden and his ineptness. The man can't finish a doggone sentence. And I said, there's no way people are going to vote for these guys. But they did. And I don't understand it. I'm scratching my head to figure it out. I don't get it to this day. And I don't think it's all Donald Trump, nor is it all his fault. I don't think Mitch McConnell did us a favor by going against the people's choices. That's not smart. He should have just said, look, if the Republicans in a particular state pick a nominee, we're all in for him. But I've seen that play out before when the Republican hierarchy in Washington refused to support the candidate at the state level. They've got to stop doing that. They've got too many consultants involved, too many middlemen, and they need to let the voters and the people who are on the ground, let them make those decisions.
Fair
Either
enough.
be a team player or don't.
Fair enough, Governor Huckabee. Mike, and thanks very much for being with us this
I couldn't believe out of all the people he brought him on. That was hilarious. I was like, that guy's so boring. Oh man, let me get to some of the comments here. Eric, I'll take those poll results whenever you have those up and ready to go, because I do want to see how you guys voted on that, and then we'll be going on over to call in to have this discussion as well. Greg Bruce says, not sure who will win now. Actually, he's not talking in the way that got him elected. That's true. Tailgater, Trump only accomplishment, tax cuts for the rich. JB, I'd love to see DeSantis run against Trump just for the entertainment value. Original Trump versus Trump remix. Pramila, independents came out heavily against Trump picks in the midterm. Well said there. Thank you for the super chat, Robin. I voted for Trump because Hillary and Biden are worse. I will vote DeSantis in the primary if he runs, but I'll probably vote Libertarian in the general. What Democrat is worth my vote? I'm not voting for a Democrat or Republican. I'll do the same thing I did this time around and vote third party or independent. Jilly Love, don't forget he tried to start a war with Iran by assassinating Soleimani. That's right. And Angela, he'll do what he did before. Talk, do his blowhard thing and do what the establishment wants. No pardon for Assange, no real end to wars and tax breaks for the rich like all of them do. Thank you so much for saying that. Well said. Let's go ahead and look at those poll results, because who do you guys think will win if Biden runs in 2024? Would he beat Trump? 11% of you said yes. 69% said no. And 20% of you said you are not sure. Interesting results. Interesting results. Thank you so much for that poll, guys. That was 580 votes. Awesome mix there. I'm going to let Eric jump in for a sec so I can take a quick break, and then we'll be back and we will transfer on over to call in and get you guys' take on this as well.
All right. How's everybody doing on this Thursday, almost Friday? And yeah, so this is where we do a little break, we give Sabby a little break before we jump into the call-in. And you can do call-in either by hitting the link that we'll be giving you. Let me put that link in now just to make sure it's here in the chat, ready to go.
Oh, Eric, I think you have like static or something in the background.
Let me try closing something.
Okay, I'll be back.
Okay. All right. Maybe that mic's a little better. I don't know. It's hard to tell. All right. Wait, let me check. Let me check my audio settings. There. Testing 1, 2, 3. Well, hopefully that's pretty good. I don't know, is that sounding left input good, right is out? Well, well, anyways, I guess we'll try going with that. It's hard to tell on my end how it sounds here. Let me check one thing here. Testing. Oh yeah, it's only doing one channel. All right, let me try it. Switch the wires. testing. 1, 2. All right, that's a little better, I think. All right. So I think we got some halfway decent audio now. Let's see. So what are we talking about? We're talking about Trump tonight on the call-in, which you can either, which you can hit the link, or you can do call-in app on your phone. All right. Well, this is as good as audio is going to get, and Sabby's going to be back shortly, so we're good. All right. So what were we talking about today? We were talking about with Trump coming in and Democrats versus Republican, and of course the thing to always remember is, of course, the Democrats and Republicans are both the same. They're both corrupt. They're both corporate. They're both warmongers, and so obviously you don't want to be voting for either of them. And one of the things I always heard talked about when they were talking about Trump is who's going to follow Trump. In that they used to talk about the president WTT, president worse than Trump, and it was this frightening concept of someone with all Trump's policies, but is actually competent. And I think with Ron DeSantis, I think we're kind of seeing that, in that you could basically have that in a guy that's a lot more appealing and electable, and is actually quite dangerous. So yeah, I keep saying, watch out for DeSantis. And but the other big part of this is that the Trump's best friend, and even all the Republicans, their best friend is the Democrats, and that they are so ridiculous and so corrupt, and it's all this game, of course, going back and forth with both parties, and but that's really the only reason that you can have a Trump or any of these ridiculous Republicans. It's just because the Democrats are just ridiculous, and it's all this theater. And in case anyone's wondering what's going on, this is just a little break for Sabby. We'll be back with us shortly. Oh, and the other thing I think of sometimes is when they do this scaremonger about open borders, and open borders, and I feel like our answer from the left is that we should want a world with open borders. I mean, that should be like a goal, not a scare point. In the U.S., I mean, we have open borders between the states, and that's a sign of a halfway functioning society and so forth. So I mean, that's what I feel like I should say about the open borders. But yeah, it was interesting to see Trump, how he looked so tired. And here we go. It's all theater. Yes, from Jackie, all theater. That's definitely on point. All right, I managed to get my mic going half decent, I think, here.
Coos. All righties. We are going to transition over to call-in, guys. So tonight's topic, and the link should be pinned to the top of the chat. Episode 55 on call-in, Trump's announcement. Trump has announced he's running for president again. Sigh. Once again, we'll have Trump versus Biden unless someone else steps up. Is it time for a third-party candidate to rise up? Definitely want to hear your take on that, guys. Follow me on over to call in. I'm going to head out here. Next week, Andrew Yang will be here, and Max Blumenthal will also be here. So good things happening next week. Tomorrow, we will also have a worker co-op panel is coming on for the first part of the show, and we'll have news as well. So for those of you who have been interested in how to start a worker co-op, well, you're going to find out tomorrow from people who actually have. The link's pinned to the top of the chat, guys. I will see you over there at Call-In. You know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.